Yeah, the squirrel was a knob. Nobody seems to realise that.
He ate all our food, drank all our beer.
Yeah, and he didn't have a leg.
He took up the hula.
This plastic squirrel we had.
He took up the hula the lounge sofa, so nobody could sit down and watch any of the movies.
By his own admission, Ian had no idea how to structure songs when Lostprophets were working first on their initial demos and then on their debut LP. These things come with time, and time brings maturity. But maturity is the natural enemy of that raw, unsophisticated, first-time-out spontaneity that made the original garage punk bands like MC5 so compelling. It was true, too, of the British punk of the mid-1970s. Maybe it was that lack of artifice or self-consciousness that the band managed to cram into Here Comes the Party, the first demos that so impressed Metal Hammer magazine and prompted them to give Lostprophets 10 out of 10 in their first major review. As Ian has since remarked in interviews, the band featured at that time a sax player and a DJ, whose job was to provide scratching and other non-musical elements. If it was seen later to be a transitional phase for the band, their response would most likely be that they always play the music that they like, whatever that might mean at the time. From there, it was a short journey to the pages of rock magazine Kerrang, who were similarly bowled over by this jet-propelled message in a bottle from the Welsh Valleys. So much so, in fact, they were given a slot on a Kerrang-sponsored gig. This in turn brought them to the attention of Visible Noise, an independent British record label devoted to championing new bands away from the strictures of the mainstream. For their first officially recorded song, the band would use the name that has since become synonymous with their emergence from obscurity. The Fake Sound of Progress was not only the title of a 7-inch vinyl single, backed with a demo called Happy New Year, Have a Great 1985, but was used again for their first major album release on Visible Noise. This was to be the original version of the album, containing 16 songs recorded in a single session during 2000 on a budget of £4,000. Their original lineup, with Mike Lewis on bass, had been a useful stopgap when no better solution had presented itself. But now it became clear that if they were going to not only record an album, but to tour as well, they needed Mike back on guitar to provide the sonic power needed on stage. They now needed a permanent bass player. To this end, Lostprophets recruited Stuart Richardson, who would not only play bass, but would also play the essential role of the band's token drinker, until Jamie Oliver would turn up a year from then. It wasn't that Stuart would stop drinking, just that Jamie would prove he knew how to do it to a more professional, perhaps even industrial, standard. Stuart was born in Ferndale, a village a few miles up the Rhondda Valley from Pontypridd, where he spent the first 18 years of his life developing a healthy distaste for Ferndale and everything about it. At the age of 6, he began to play the acoustic guitar, but soon abandoned it through lack of real interest. At 13, he became a rock fan, his particular favourites being Iron Maiden, Red Hot Chili Peppers and Faith No More. As everyone he knew played guitar, he decided to be different and learned to play bass. As things turned out, it was an inspired move. The core members of Lostprophets had known Stuart from the Pontypridd music scene. He was the natural choice to replace Mike Lewis. The original version of The Fake Sound of Progress was released in November 2000 under the catalogue number Torment 05. For a first release on an independent label, it was remarkably successful, selling a total of 140,000 copies in the UK alone. By 2001, they had been feted in Kerrang as Best Newcomers. Also by then, they had come to the attention of the weekly British rock paper, the NME, who offered readers the chance to appear in the band's first video to accompany the release of their first mainstream single, Shinobi vs. Dragon Ninja, to be released on November 19th, 2001. But before this, there was to be a remixed and resequenced version of the first album. Sony, who had taken on distribution for Visible Noise, felt that the original mix was unsuitable for mass-market consumption, bringing Lostprophets to their first run-in with the real world of corporate-financed rock. Feeling that the album lacked those qualities that it takes for mainstream product to appeal to as wide an audience as possible, Sony insisted on certain changes. You can react to this in two ways. Either you can take the view that if you sign with a powerful global corporation like Sony, you are bound to end up being processed accordingly. Or you can decide that what you have to say is what you have to say, that you're going to do it your way, and those who don't like it can, essentially, fuck off and die. The unhappy facts of life are that most people with any regard for ambition and career progress are going to opt for the corporate makeover. This is going to lead to accusations of a sellout from those fans who always like to claim afterwards that they were there from the start and can remember the band when they were still purists. That is all very well, but if the idea is to make any kind of progress and, in the case of Lostprophets, get the hell out of Pontypridd, it's crystal clear which choice should be made.